Hello everyone, this is Tony from Two Copper Pieces. I'm the one without the beard, and in this episode we're going to be doing some fast highlights. We're going to be doing a bit of dry brushing and a bit of stuff with contrast paints, and you'll see how that is achieved. I'm also going to go for some different shadowy underpainting looks, as you'll see a bit later as well. I'm going to be painting this bone naga. I'm also going to be painting a snake wraith, and we're going to be doing some of the painting with some of these game inks. These are from Game Color. I got these for Christmas and I thought they'd be a bit more like contrast paints, but they're not really. I'm showing you color wheel here. We're going to go for a purple and yellow contrast for the shadows. So we're going to use some of these to try and get some highlights and lowlights in, and just to see what it looks like. I'm no expert at this, as you will see, but I'm just going to try something a little bit different that you might like to try with your miniatures as well. So taking this yellow actually is very much like a contrast paint. The back of it said that this color was opaque, but as you can see, as the yellow goes on, you can still see all of the recesses are darker and black from the zenithal highlight. It hasn't painted over them at all, so certainly not opaque. It's difficult to get yellow paint opaque. The video is slightly sped up. The focus of this isn't really the brush control or anything like that, so I'm speeding up these bits just to get the content in there effectively within a reasonable amount of time. But yeah, doing all of the top layer, the stuff, like I guess if the light was shining from above, the stuff the light would hit in yellow, and the bits that the light wouldn't hit I'm doing in purple at the moment, and trying to get a bit of a blend along the lines and the edges as I go with it as well. I'm not being too careful because this is more of an underpainting, just slapping it on there. I've already done the zenithal highlight, which will do a lot of work. You can see with the purple, this is looking quite opaque as well, but that's because I've added some water. So mixing a bit of water in will allow us to turn these into something much more like a contrast paint, which is quite effective, quite handy, and good for me. Means I'll be able to go even longer without buying any more paints. I've got so many paints, so many. I don't know what I'm going to do with them all. I think I'm going to get some medium. I really like the transparency of contrast paints, or that style. So I'll be using those a lot. So I think I might just get some contrast medium. I've got this massive box of Game Color paints, which are just standard acrylic paints, and they're all basically full still. I don't see any need to buy any more paints for a very long time, so that's where I'm at. And where people say, miniature paints are expensive, I mean, they are for the amount of paint that you get, but given that you're painting miniatures with them, they do go for a very long time. They last a very long time. I haven't finished a paint pot ever, I think, except Nuln Oil Nuln Oil wash from Games Workshop. Here I'm using some Liquitex pink, or magenta, I should say. I tried to mix up some magenta with the Game Color. It didn't work. It just turned to a sort of dark browny green. So never mind. When I was trying to mix up magenta, I did look up a recipe for it. Not a specific inks recipe, but the basic recipe for magenta. Apparently, blue and red equals magenta. Does it? No, it doesn't seem to. Still, I've gone for a Liquitex one here. Again, I've got my brush very wet, which is giving us a contrast effect. This Liquitex ink is also opaque, but by watering it down, it's sinking into the cracks very deeply and darkly. It's not entirely opaque it's not entirely transparent with the addition of the water. So even the recesses are kind of pink, which is good, because these are pink clouds that I've decided to go for. I then decided to give it a dry brush to try and make those higher points pop even more, and I really didn't like what was going on. I'd recently watched a video by Artis Opus, who does excellent videos. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. I'm trying his approach to dry brushing, and it's just not happening, at least not on this model. It could be more this model. So instead, I've grabbed one of those tiny little brushes, really thin brush, and effectively I'm going to be doing dry brushing with those. Not exactly dry, but because the brushes are so small and I'm wiping so much off there on the glass palette, I should be able to get some really vibrant highlights just by picking at them like this. a bit more of a dry brush approach rather than picking out every individual scale. I have a life. I don't have time to pick out every individual scale. I don't enjoy that process. Not to knock anyone that does. If you want to go and put a little dot on every tiny little scale, you go for it. But I'd rather sort of take a shortcut to it. I really enjoy getting things done quickly. It's very satisfying, I think, and also to good effect. Here I'm just cleaning up my my glass palette, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to try and I'm going to give the dry brush one more chance, I should say. And as you'll see, I'm not very happy with the result. It looks okay in my hand, but then when I'm trying to dry brush over yellow, it just kind of tints it all. It doesn't pick up the texture, it doesn't react to the texture, it just kind of tints it all orange. So instead I've gone with that same approach with that really tiny brush, really thin. I have to keep going back to the paint, but I'm just making sure my strokes all go in the same direction so that I don't end up filling the little gaps and crevices with orange. Just one direction, brushing across and letting the scales pick up the orange in quite a heavy way, really. It's fine as it is. We'll go back with some red in a little while as well and try and do it lighter than this. But you'll see me utilising this technique to paint quite a bit of the model now. So yeah, here I am just trying to pick up a few of them, taking my time a little bit more. Sometimes using an edge, like you might do with edge highlighting, just using the side of the bristles instead of, and trying to go at the scales with the bristles horizontal. Just adding eyes here. It's not really about eyes. Oh no, it's not eyes, sorry. Bone. Yeah, so just got some bone colour. This is a bone naga. It's really a zombie snake, so it has some exposed bones and exposed guts and stuff like that coming out. So I'm just making those stand out and pop a bit more. Don't know why I went for the purple and yellow difference. I think the contrast mainly. I was trying to aim for like a lighting effect, I guess, but I don't think I've hit that at all. And now I'm just much more interested in making these little bits stand out. I think the scales look okay. Could be better, but it's not really the main feature of the model that I want to highlight anymore or make the main part. Making the bones and the guts really stand out should help. I've also gone back with some purple, and I'm going to underpaint the floor of the base, I guess, the stone that the snake is sitting on in purple. I'll go and dry brush it with a darker grey and a lighter grey later, so that there's a bit of purple coming through as a bit of a deeper shadow. Usually it would just be black. Just trying to do something a little bit different to see how it goes. Something I've seen some other YouTubers do, perhaps not in the way that I'm doing it here. And here I started, we're back over to the Wraith now, and here you can see that fast dry brushing approach with a very thin brush is working a lot better than the dry brush was. I think where these edges are not as sort of harsh and jaggedy, the dry brush just wasn't doing the trick. Artist Opus says use the biggest dry brush you can, and I think I used the biggest dry brush and it wasn't fit for purpose for this. But this definitely works quite effectively, as you can see, and because there's paint all the way up the thin brush, you tend to leave a stronger amount on the higher surfaces, and you still have like a less saturated amount of paint as the surfaces move downwards into lower points. So you get a bit more of a transitional gradient by using the brush in the way that I've shown you there. But yes, back to dry brushing for the rocks now. As you can see, the other advantage of using this really thin brush is you can get into lots of tiny places and still do a bit of dry brushing with it. Did the eyes, not focusing on that too much, wasn't the best job. Just white with some paint. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please hit the subscribe button, press the like button, share it with people. Let me know what you think of the paint job. Perhaps you've got a different approach for dry brushing. Yeah, I'd love to know in the comments. But otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thank you very much, everyone. I've been 2 Copper Pieces.